Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at a real grizzled elite gamer status hardcore game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. From Software's newest game. Let me go ahead and say Souls-like games are my favorite games out there. It's among my favorite genres. I've played literally every big budget Souls-like game, including Lords of the Fallen and The Surge, which a lot of you fake pussy-ass gamers seem to have skipped over. I was out there putting nuts to butts on those games, and I still enjoyed those. I fucking love the genre, and I'm happy to say Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is a beautiful entry into it, gave me some fat boners, and now it's time to share that hard penis with you and what my thoughts on the game were. Now, I think most people were expecting Sekiro to be Dark Souls clone, Dark Souls in a different coat of paint, a Trojan horse for Dark Souls just in a different time period, and it's not. This is a very mechanically different game from the Souls series, and that's a good thing. They explored different ways of combat, and I think for the most part it flows and works really well, and I don't think anyone's surprised to learn that Sekiro is a good game. From Software really fucking kills it in this genre, and they really did try and innovate in this one, and I think for the most part they did something very unique. It's not an overly different game from the Souls games. If you've played the series, you're going to feel right at home in here. It's immediately recognizable as a Souls-like game, but it plays very different. For instance, in Souls-like games, typically you rely on dodging as your primary method of avoiding damage. Sometimes you'll block, sometimes you'll parry, but primarily you're going to be dodging. In this game, dodging isn't that useful. Primarily, you're going to be focusing on deflecting and breaking your enemy's posture. That's a new thing they added, is the posture system. The more you attack, the more they block. The more you block, the more you deflect, the more damage you're doing to their posture and the more damage you're taking to your posture. If you break their posture, even if you haven't taken down all their health, you get to use a finisher on them. And it's fucking satisfying, and it makes it very strategic. Each fight seems like a really impressive showdown between two highly skilled swordsmen. And trust me, as an avid Reddit user neckbeard, I understand the ways of the blade, and it really feels like a real sword fight. They fucking nailed it here. Especially when it comes to one-on-one with like a mini-boss, a strong enemy, or a boss. One-on-one in this game just feels so fucking great. Now, the difficulty is what a lot of people are debating on. Is Sekiro easier than Dark Souls? And my answer is, I'm not sure. I really can't tell. The game is certainly more forgiving. Sekiro has idols, basically this game's bonfires, all over the place. You can't walk 10 fucking feet without running into an idol. You could stop, take a piss at one of the idols, then walk downstairs and find another idol. A great example of this is in Ashina Castle. At the top level, after you defeat a boss, you unlock an idol. You go downstairs and you immediately get another idol. So you have an idol on one floor and on the floor below it, literally about 10 feet apart. They give you so many idols. Also, death isn't as punishing as it is in Dark Souls. You lose some of your sin, which is your currency, and then half of your XP as well. But really, neither one were that big of a deal in my playthrough. Losing the sin didn't exactly feel as devastating as getting like rejected to prom or anything. Neither did losing the XP, because you can get it back pretty easily. Plus, when it comes to losing XP, you never drop a level. So let's say you start at level 2 in your skill points, and you die 50 fucking times, you just get ass blasted 50 times, you never go back to level 1, you still stay at that benchmark right there. So death, I think, is a little more forgiving in this than the Souls series, where you lose all your souls and you get kind of fucked hard sometimes. This one, you never really feel like you're getting face fucked by death. You can kind of just keep charging at it. If you, let's say you spend all your sin, you can kind of just keep charging at a hard enemy or a hard horde and just fucking meatballing your way through. Just fucking keep dying, just keep wet noodling it and never have to worry about it, because it's not that big of an issue. The only thing is, if you do die, you have an option of resurrecting, and the resurrection causes dragon rot, which will lower your unseen aid, which is another mechanic in the game, and also inflict your NPCs with what's called dragon rot, which makes some quest lines inaccessible. So that can definitely be a hindrance, but you can get rid of dragon rot, and you can choose when you get rid of dragon rot based on when you use the item to get rid of it. I think all of these mechanics work really well, but overall make it a more forgiving Souls-like game. For some people that's a positive, for others it's a negative. For me, I was neutral on it because it's still just a fun fucking game. Now, one thing I really have to critique on the game is the camera. The camera betrayed me more times than I can fucking count, especially indoors. Indoors in an enclosed space, sometimes it'll just take the lock off of the enemy and it'll throw itself into like a goddamn toilet somewhere, just get lost in the shitter. You can't see anything and you just get absolutely clobbered, and by no fault of your own, just some spotty camera shit. And I also don't really like Sekiro's approach to difficulty in some circumstances. In some boss encounters and mini-boss encounters, the way they make it hard sometimes isn't because it's a hard enemy. It's they'll throw multiple enemies in addition to that enemy at you, so they'll just try and overwhelm you with numbers, and then it becomes a huge challenge. I think that's a really lazy way of making a boss or mini-boss challenging. I'd prefer if his combo strings or moves were just better designed and to make it a more mechanically challenging boss, instead of, holy shit, I'm just getting hazed in the football team's locker room here by all of these enemies. I just don't like that approach all that much. Also, in the game, you get a robo-arm, a prosthetic arm, which comes with a lot of different attachments, like a fucking flamethrower, things like that. I think all of the prosthetics were very, very situational, to the point where you'd almost never use them and you'd always just forget that you even had them. I don't think the prosthetics ever really had a strong purpose, at least in my initial playthrough. New Game Plus, I find myself using it a bit more. That's another thing, New Game Plus is extremely easy. I expected it to be harder, not a complaint, just saying. But the prosthetics never really solidify themselves as a valid thing to use against any enemies of any kind. Sometimes, like with the finger whistle prosthetic, you can plan out a strategic attack, and I could see the use in that. But in terms of combat, I don't think you will ever use a prosthetic for more than like breaking a shield or something with the axe, or just very briefly stunning the boss with the firecracker so you can get one cheap shot in on him or break up his combo. Also, in addition to that, there's a couple skill trees that are totally fucking worthless as well. The martial arts tree serves genuinely no purpose at all. It doesn't really increase the duration of your consumables by much, maybe like 2 or 3 seconds from what I've seen. And also, it doesn't increase your sin gain by that much. And all of the offensive moves in the martial arts tree, you should never ever get. It's a huge waste of your skill points. I have seen no reason to ever use anything from the martial arts tree. And the last complaint I have about the game is the hook shot. I don't exactly know how else to explain it. The thing that you latch onto roofs and you swing towards them, to put it for all of you non-Sekiro veterans out there. That lock-on is very all over the place and inconsistent. Sometimes you're like right underneath the thing that you want to grapple onto, and it will not pick it up. It seems like it works when it wants to work, and sometimes it just fucking falls asleep and won't work at all. I swear, that shit just made me so soft sometimes. But anyway, let me plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Sekiro Shadows Die Twice an 85%. I think the game is spectacular. I fucking loved it start to finish. Also, the final boss, I think, is a huge, huge piece of shit. The final boss is the hardest boss in any Souls-like game I have ever played. And I beat the shit out of every Souls-like game, and I never struggled as much as I did on the final boss. You have to fucking fight 4 different phases with full health bars, and the third phase and fourth phase of the final boss, I think, are just genuinely unfair to a certain degree. I had to cheese it to beat him, and I'm embarrassed to say that because I've never had to resort to using any type of cheese on any boss in any of the Souls-like games, but in this one, I unfortunately did. I haven't gotten back to him in New Game Plus yet. I'm taking my time and exploring again, and this time, I feel like I can probably get him, but still, that boss is fucking brutal. Now, I'm always asked to tier list put the Souls-like series in order from best to worst. So I'll give you my tier list for the Souls-like games. Number 1, Nioh. Nioh's my favorite Souls-like. Second place, Dark Souls 1. Third place, Bloodborne. Fourth place, Sekiro. And then fifth place, Dark Souls 3. Sixth place, The Surge. Seventh place, Dark Souls 2. Eighth place, Demon Souls. And then ninth place, Lords of the Fallen. That is my Souls-like tier list, and that's about it. So yeah.